All right, how you doing? My name's Germann. I work at Sears, Chicago Ridge. It's been here ever since I can remember. It's on the southwest side. I've been at Sears for 6.5 years, and I'm a backroom associate.
So you guys recently had a successful union election here of the, we call the backroom employees. You work primarily on the docks, I understand, right? Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, the work that you do to start off with?
Well, we unload trucks, do MPU, merchandise pickup, stock locate, you name it, we do it. We're the backbone of this company.
And my understanding too is that this is not the first time that you've tried to hold an election here at the Sears, is that correct?
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago we tried to get a union in, and we lost. This time we got lucky with 881, and it's the best thing that happened to us.
How many members in your unit, and what was the vote totals in the end?
I think there was about 25 members, and the vote was 15-2.
Okay.
Which was real good.
So not everybody voted apparently in the unit, but the people who voted, it was an overwhelming majority then.
Yes, it was overwhelming. There was a few challenges, but because the vote was 15-2, they didn't even count them challenges because we won.
What do you think you attribute that such a successful vote to? Because I mean, this is not easy. This, very rarely, unfortunately, one of the reasons we're out here, right, is this is a rare occurrence that you actually win an election. So what do you attribute that success to?
I would say that the back room, we stuck together, and we said enough's enough. We needed a change. And I think the change is a good change with 881.
And we should point out, too, that the workforce here is a very diverse workforce, right? It really, in terms of age and race and everything, and male, female, you've really got a very diverse group of workers that you're talking about, right?
Yes, we do. We got young kids, ladies, older guys, and they come to work every day and they do their job, and they get harassed, and it's not right. I mean, they come, they put in a hard day's work, and management treats them bad.
And I understand too, part of the reason for the victory this time is that it's the backroom employees are the ones that have been organized, that have wanted to form a union here. But the store has continually interfered with that process by saying, no, the backroom employees themselves can't organize, it has to be the whole store, that they've used that to try to water down any election results. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. This multinational company is using every single trick of these anti-union campaigns. They use it, and they're still using all those tricks, especially to break psychological all the workers inside.
What were some of the reasons that encouraged you to organize in the first place? What were the conditions that you were facing at work that convinced you that it was important that you guys organize?
You know what? It was just the way they treated us. It wasn't good. We go to work, and management would just put us down, and we had no one to back us up. So, when I give credit to the backroom guys, a little shout out to them. They stayed strong, and we're going to make changes.
Were there specific concerns in regards to, say, wages or working conditions that you wanted to see changed?
Yeah, we want wages, more money. We want better insurance. Basically, we want a new life. We want to take care of our families. A lot of us have families and that stuff, and the way how the old Sears was going, it wasn't possible.
So what are the current wages and working conditions? Do you mind talking about those?
No. Guys are doing a lot of heavy work, and they're not even pulling in $10 an hour, which, in my eyes, is terrible.
So we're talking about barely above minimum wage for most workers.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
And you've been there, you said, 7 years, is that what you said? Close
to 7 years, yes.
And how much are you making after being there so long?
I'm making $14 an hour, but that's only because I got a raise being the lead, and then they brought another person in to be the lead, and they dropped me back down to just being a worker. But $14 an hour, it might sound like a lot, but for the work we're doing, I mean, we're lifting heavy stuff, and they're asking us to do everything in the store, which isn't fair.
No, after 7 years, $14 an hour is not a reasonable wage.
No, you can't survive.
You talked about insurance being a concern too. What were there specific concerns about the insurance that you have?
Yeah, I don't have insurance.
Okay.
I have a family, and the only thing I can afford is dental. I can't afford their insurance. If I took their insurance, I wouldn't bring home nothing.
Now, one of the interesting aspects of this particular organizing effort here too is that, as we said earlier, Sears has fought this in the past by saying, no, we're not going to let the dock workers or the backroom employees organize. It has to be the entire store, sales associates, all these things. And that's watered down the possible bargaining unit, and that it made it impossible for you guys to succeed in an NLRB election in the past. But there were some changes, I guess, the NLRB made recently that made it possible for you guys to declare this, the backroom employees, a unit unto its own, right? And so they were able to then organize themselves and have a successful election. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The specifics of the law, obviously I'm not a lawyer, but the specifics of the law, I don't have the specifics of the law right now. But yes, now we are allowed to break the store by units, and also the elections are faster. So it's only took like 2 weeks, 3 weeks
About
maybe.
2-3 weeks, yeah.
Since we filed 2 or 3 weeks. That's for us as an organizers, as a union, it's wonderful, because sometimes when it takes a month or maybe 2 or 3 months to conduct the elections, they use all kind of tricks and fire people. So right now, the law is a little bit more in our side, not 100%.
Sure.
We know that, but we can. We as an organizers can use that in our favor, and to get elections.
That's an interesting point to make, because back, well, gosh, I guess it's been almost 8 years ago now, or more than 8 years, when IFCA was being proposed, the Employee Free Choice Act, which was a law that would have dramatically altered labor law in this country and tried to put it a little bit more in the favor of workers as compared to the favor of employers, which it is now. And one of the aspects of that law was this shortening of the time it takes to get election, because one of the problems you have when they drag these things out is that they just figure out all kinds of ways to really convince and scare away employees from agreeing to the union. So usually what will happen is employees will be angry, they want to form a union, they get excited about the idea, they get together, they organize, but then when they push for an election, and it takes like 3-4 months for that to happen, in that time the company starts holding these meetings and starts going to the individuals themselves and putting pressure on them, and all of a sudden you get 2 months down the road and all those guys that were excited about joining are no longer so excited. So this is an important step in terms of making it more likely to be successful in these drives in the future, right?
Yeah, it's a huge important step. Time is always against us, against workers. They know that, and they use the time to break the law. They are going to break the law, and they are an army of lawyers to fight against us. We don't have a lot of resources, so they know that they can break the law, and they're going to make as long as they can in the time to fight back us. So this is a really big step.
Do you think this is a strategy too that you'll see UFCW and perhaps other unions as well employing in the future, where when you have a large entity like the Sears, you look for a unit that's very clearly interested in organizing and you focus on them rather than maybe the larger entity, which will be much harder to organize?
Yes, we can use that as a strategy, but always depend on the workers. It's always depend on them.
I mean, I think there is a broader implication here, which I don't know if this has been in your mind at all. But obviously, you're fighting for yourself. You're fighting for your fellow workers. You're fighting for your for wages, for benefits for yourself, for the ability to support your wife, as you were saying.
Right.
But there is a broader issue here, which is, as we've seen the economy, the economy tanked, of course, in 2008. We had the Great Recession. Supposedly, we're in recovery now, right?
Yeah,
but that hasn't meant much for many working people, right? We're at a very difficult time for working people. We've basically, over the last 50 years, right, 60 years, we've seen working people's wages and living conditions decline. And so this fight back may be for you right here, but this is also a broader issue about the working class in general, right? About the importance of us organizing and fighting back in general. I don't know if you ever have thought of that in that light when you've been organizing, or?
Oh yeah, all the time. We wanted to make a change, and just like you said, this was the way we can do it. And through the union 881, I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to have a better life. Well, I know we're going to have a better life because of 881. And yes, all the time. I'm just an average Joe. You know what? I go to work every day, try to support my family. I'll do anything for these guys in the back room. They know it, and this is why we did it.
And I guess what I'm saying too is you may think of yourself as an average Joe, and you are like a lot of your coworkers and so on, but this is a bold step to make still, right? And it's something that I think needs to happen much more broadly among the working class if we're going to see the changes that we need to see society-wide. Even.
I totally agree, because like I said, you look throughout the world, a lot of people aren't surviving, can't pay their mortgage, can't do this, and these big companies, they don't care. So as a working class, we had to take charge and step up.
So we'll continue to follow this story, of course, as it goes on, because this is the first step, and there's the first round, and now there's new negotiations for the new contract. The first contract will be another big step, and that in of itself, as you know, as an organizer, is always a real challenge. How much gains you can make in that first contract. So we'll continue to follow up with you and see how things go as this progresses.
Great, wonderful. And thank you for stress working class. That's very important, because these kind of companies are always using associate, what else, team member, and our interest as a workers is not the interest of the CEOs and all these companies. Sometimes what is good for Sears or for a company is not really good for the workers. So that's very, very important to realize, to understand that we're workers, and our interest, not necessarily the interest of the CEOs and the company.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I should have emphasized that more when we were talking about how labor law in this country unfortunately works against workers. That's exactly what the company was doing, right? Not only by saying, you can't, this group of workers can't organize, it has to be the whole store, but then they create all these various categories and labels and titles to try to confuse the situation, to say, well, they're not really an employee, they're an associate, they're, whatever. That's the way that they use independent contractors all the time, right? In the economy, they'll say, workers an independent contractor, so they're not directly an employee, so they can't, organize because they're not an employee. So that kind of stuff was happening here too, at least with the use of titles and things like that, to try to convince people that you're not a worker, right?
Exactly, and it's part of the game.
Yeah.
And they're playing the game, and enough's enough.